Hello and welcome to, I think, episode 67 of the Your Way podcast. So I am joined today by Megan Gillman and Lorelei Gillman. We have our first pet. We have our first pet on the show, um, which is so fun. I think this is the first podcast I've ever done where I literally have met Megan for the first time 10 minutes ago. Now, we've been in group spaces before and we've chatted bits before, but this is the first time Megan reached out to me towards the end of last year. She was like, I think I've got some really interesting stuff to talk about on your podcast. And I was like, let's have a quick chat. And we had a quick chat, and I was like, no, you do have some interesting stuff to come and talk about on my podcast. So here we are. So Megan, it's lovely to meet you. It's lovely to have you here. Um, Tell people a little bit about you and what you do, and then we'll dive in. You can tell people about Lorelei as well, unless she wants to introduce herself.
I that would be really magical if she was able to introduce herself. No, Lorelei is my small dog. She barks much out windows, and so she's sitting with me today, so I can keep her calm while we chat. And hello, thank you so much for having me here. I am a life coach, a witchy life coach, who started my coaching journey actually working at universities. And I was a coach and advisor for college students who were just starting, making that big transition and trying to help them map out their careers and deal with all of the things that will happen to you at some point if you're chasing a big goal, like failing your first class or questioning whether you're even chasing the right goal, or trying to tell your parents that you, in fact, would like to major in English literature and not business management. Um, and so throughout this process, I was doing a lot of yoga to keep
Mhm.
myself calm. and, and I ended up doing yoga teacher training. And from there on, my coaching and my yoga practice and my philosophy started to merge. And recently they merged in a way that I've started to notice in other practitioners as well, that you kind of start in the mental health space or the helping profession space, and then you deepen your own spiritual journey and you end up dabbling lightly in witchcraft, and then
Mhm.
maybe not dabbling so much. So, yeah, I have gone on this really fun journey of I am a serious life coach. I help people with serious issues. I help women stop burnout. I help women um, change their career path. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I'm doing life coaching that incorporates like channeling and tarot reading and some light spell casting if you're comfortable with it. Um, and it's been a really fun journey. That's most of my work is with women and seeing them awaken to their intuition and their gifts.
Amazing. And I love that introduction. And actually, it'd be interesting because I've got a couple of clients who are on the path, so they've got their corporate job, they've done their yoga certification. So they can listen to this and be like, oh, this is what's coming in the future. So prior to doing the coaching with the students, what what came before?
I started that right after I had graduated college. So I that was something that I got really into when I was a student. For any listeners who have gone to a university in the US, they'll have had the experience of when you start, there's a group of like incredibly peppy, spirited students whose job it is to get you very excited about going to the school.
Okay.
And I had that job for several years. And I found out that I really enjoyed helping other people through this transition of like, I'm starting something new. It's a beautiful point in a lot of people's lives where they're deciding who they think they want to be. And it was just a really fun place for me to meet people and support them. And so my degree was in linguistics and psychology. But as soon as I got that experience, I was like, this is what I want my career to be. I want to be a coach. I want to be, or I guess I didn't know it was called a coach, but I knew I wanted to work and help support that transition of I'm starting something new and I'm nervous and it's really important to me. I really want it to go well. And
Yeah.
and that's just sort of so that was my first big girl job. in my career. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, because the thing is, when like it's easy to say, oh, I don't know how old you are. I turned 40 last year. But it's easy, like when you go through your life, you go through all of these transition points, don't you? And I think that is one of those big things. There's all of this pressure of like, I want to do this thing right or I want to do it well. But our body is so designed for homeostasis and not doing things differently and not changing. Now, obviously, when you're transitioning from like school to college to university to like you said, your first big girl job, they're all like very normal, accepted transitions. But then actually also that transition from, okay, well, I've ticked all of those boxes and I'm in this fancy career that I was supposed to be super happy with, and I'm like, not so much. Or and I don't know if you experienced the burnout. I certainly did experience the burnout in 2018 of, okay, but I've ticked all these boxes and now I want to change. But then you've got all of that stuff that goes into, but you worked so hard. Like a lot of my clients were privately educated. I wasn't. I went to Catholic school all the way through. Good Catholic girl, turned witch over here. Um,
Me too. Well, I
yeah,
was never a good Catholic girl, but I was a Catholic girl.
right. But then you've got all of that pressure of like, I've spent all this much on my study. So like university over there is a lot more expensive. Like it's got more expensive over here, but over there is like expensive, expensive. Right. So you put all of this, like all of this investment goes in, and then you get to this point and you're like, yeah, but I don't want any of it. I don't want any of it. It doesn't feel like me anymore. I just want to
Mhm.
go and teach yoga or keep other people happy or like whatever it is. And I think that transition can feel so hard, even in yourself, but then against all of that pressure of, but so much has been spent on my education, and what are my parents going to think, and what are my colleagues going to think, and what's everybody going to think?
Oh,
Instead of,
what?
well, how am I going to feel?
Yeah, and that's what I ended up. That's what pulled me to leave my job in education was this sense that like I was at around that point and I had a couple of wake up calls where I was like, oh, okay, so I either have to settle and accept that this is my life forever, or I have to change my life. And I ended up hiring a coach to help me through that transition. Well, first I hired her because I could not deal with my boss. And I was like, I'm not going to let another terrible boss chase me away from a job I love.
Love it.
And it ended up like, okay, I sorted that out and I decided, I'm helping all of these students decide on what their path is and dream big and reach for possibilities. And I know what I want to do next, which is I want to start my own business. I don't know exactly what that will look like. But who is there in your life when you're at the time I was in my late 20s, but once you're settled and you have a job, and in the US, if you have a job with health insurance, people are
Mm,
like, stay. Like that's it. You've
yeah.
got it. Stay where you are. That's the practical choice. I I looked around and I was like, who is there telling specifically women to make the unpractical choice and really bet on yourself? And I couldn't find anyone. I mean, even I had great counselors and therapists,
Mm,
but aside from my coaches, no one was saying make the scary choice. No one was saying, yeah, just quit and figure it out. Um, Everyone was saying like, oh, like look at how far you've gotten and look at what you have around you, and this isn't really so bad, right? And it wasn't, but I felt like such a hypocrite. And I felt like I
mm.
was disowning parts of myself when I was cultivating this belief and kindling it in all of my students, and then telling myself, like, no, not for you, though. And that was incredibly powerful for me and my husband at the time. Well, still my husband, but at the time, my husband did me, gave me a huge gift of saying, no, like, try it. Like, it's not the practical decision. It is risky. Try it anyway. And I'm here and we'll figure it out.
Amazing. And this is really going to resonate with a lot of people who are listening to this, who are in that space of, because you do this mental gymnastics, don't you? Like, this is fine. Maybe I can just make it work. Maybe I should be grateful with what I've got. So I think you call it a 401k over there. We will just call it a pension. I think it's the same-ish thing. Um, We still would have private medical insurance, but obviously it's a little bit different than your healthcare needs. Um, but all of these different things of like, that's the safe and secure option, that's the sensible option, that's what sensible good girls do. They work hard, they go and they get a good job and they be good wives and they manage all of these different pieces. And I think there is a certain kind of person, and it isn't for everyone, but when you have that feeling inside, that little voice that says, this isn't what I came here for. And like for you as well, I actually want to embody what I'm teaching other people. Like I need to be in an embodiment. I don't know what word I'm trying to find.
Yeah,
You know what I'm trying to
alignment,
say.
I guess, works for me. Like I have to be
Yeah.
what I say has to match what I'm doing, or else I feel icky.
Mm.
I don't really care if other people notice a mismatch, but if I notice that mismatch and I don't do anything about it, for me it starts to feel like you're just wearing a deeply uncomfortable, itchy sweater and you're not taking it off. And it's like, why am I doing that to myself?
Yeah, it's like it's fine, but I could be wearing something that feels a bit more comfortable and it's a bit more me. So, and I appreciate that you might not have like full, because sometimes I think the changes happen and we don't necessarily like cognitively recognize them. So so you're doing that job, you're doing the yoga. So can you
Mhm.
walk us through to like the best of your recollection, how this all then unfolded to go from that to dabbling in witchcraft?
To dabbling in witchcraft.
And I'm
Yeah.
also curious what that looks like for you as well, because I think the thing with being a witch is it's not like it's a defined term. We're not all following the same code of conduct and doing the exact same things. But if you
No.
just walk us through the transition, because I think again people will recognize themselves at different points. So I think it'd just be interesting.
Yes. So I'll take you on a quick journey. It took me, I think it's been about 5 years since I made that transition, since I like left my full-time job and decided I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to life coach, I'm going to teach yoga, and eventually it will come together. I will know what my job is. And um, yeah, so the first step was for me to take that bet on myself and to say, like, no, I'm gonna take on clients. I'm gonna start coaching in my unique way. And I made a very particular choice not to pursue an official ICF accreditation right out of the gate because I had come from academia where you have to have a piece of paper that says you can do the thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I was interested in just saying like, no, you don't have to wait for someone else to approve you. You don't have to wait for someone else to pick you. And life coaching is a profession where you don't. You just have to have your clients pick
Yeah.
you. And that felt more aligned with where I was at the time. So I was doing that. I was teaching yoga, and I started to notice that I was leaning into a lot of the yoga philosophy and a lot of the energetics and the practices from that I had learned as a yoga teacher in my life coaching. It was kind of merging together. I also do the thought work of like, make a thought model. Or I like the work by Byron Katie a lot, which actually a client introduced me to. She was like, this sounds like Byron Katie. So I looked into it and I was like, oh, it does. This is
Mm.
excellent. So I use those tools, but I started really getting into something that seems a little bit more somatic, where you feel things in your body and you work with the chakra centers and the energy centers and
Nice.
start to align with that. And it all felt really beautiful. And it started to take my clients to a really empowered place. I work with I call my one-on-one coaching Good Girl Deprogramming because I work with very high achieving women. I work with women who have checked all the boxes and gotten to where they're supposed to be. And they're like, well, I'm only like 37. Uh, is this the end? What's next? Right. And um, they already are overthinking. So a lot of them, that thought work piece was not hard, but it also wasn't helpful because they already know everything that's not working. They know exactly what's happening. They struggle with energetically being able to actually move forward and take action. So for me, those yoga tools were super helpful. And then the next important shift was for me as a white middle class woman living in America to start to hear from some teachers who or people of color. Simone Sol was a great one for this, just talking about like decolonizing some of the work I do and realizing that I had discomfort internally about building my business and my income stream on yogic philosophy that I had learned from other white women that I'd paid other white people to be certified in. And just getting curious about what would my genetic heritage have that's maybe comparable to the tools I used in yoga. And if you are a white woman of European descent and you dig back into your lineage to find spiritual practices, energy activation, mindfulness, it's witchcraft. That's what it is. That's what's waiting for you at the bottom of that well. And so realizing that this is in some ways very similar, like from the outside, from my client's perspective, the experience hasn't really shifted. But from my perspective, it's become much richer, if only because I have access to a whole different toolbox, a whole different lineage that I can connect to without having to wrap my head around so many questions about like, oh, well, like, should I really be teaching this or should I be leaving it to someone else?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. So and we're very open to different views on this podcast. That's why it's called Your Way. So I have a slightly different view on this. Um, I mean, like, I think at its core, I think we're all part of one. We're all part of the whole, this whole one consciousness thing, right? So whatever kind of body we've reincarnated in this time, um, is just whatever body we've reincarnated in this time. But at a point in time, maybe you were a person of color, maybe you were a black man, maybe you were an Indian beggar, maybe you were a murderous Chinese lady, right? And so
Murderous.
and so and so I suppose I don't grapple with it in the same way. It's more like if something resonates with me, what is it that I can take from it to use that is then beneficial, and where do I learn from and who do I learn from? Like, and I can see, and I suppose this is an interesting question actually, because I went to Bali for 3 weeks in September and spent quite a lot of time with a Balinese priest who was like indigenous Balinese and did yoga with him and learned all about Hinduism. But would it feel different for you? And the answer might be no. I'm just curious. Would it feel different for you if you had, say, gone to India and done all of your yoga training with a like indigenous Indian person, or would it still feel like then some kind of appropriation to then for you to bring and share it?
I think it would feel very different for me. I was not in the financial position when I did my yoga teacher training to be able to travel or invest. And honestly, at the time I was in my early 20s, it didn't occur to me to seek out teachers who had a deep connection to that lineage. So I really was like yoga teacher trainings near me. Okay,
Yeah,
went to the local yoga studio and yeah, and I don't I don't know that everyone is going to feel that disconnect. I want to say that I agree that like we're all I believe in reincarnation and past lives and past experiences. And then to also be like, I was born into this body in this moment in time. And these are questions that are coming up for me. So I think
yeah.
part of my journey is to be like, whoa, how do I feel about this?
Mm,
And how do I find, and I think that's very yoga, right? To be like, there's not a black and white answer. Everyone has to make their own choices. And you have to really sit and feel like, well, what do I think would be the most aligned choice for me? And when I started exploring deeper, so the first book I picked up when I started being like, you know what, let's just see what there is for me in the lineage I feel closest to is my Irish heritage. So
I
like the
did
Celtic
wonder with the
lineage.
hair and the skin.
It's fairly obvious. But I also have I mean I haven't done like 23andMe or an ancestry.com deep dive. But I know I have relatives in Ireland and relatives in Germany. So I was just like, let me just take a look. I picked up a book called The Cauldron and the Drum, A Journey into Celtic Shamanism. And I was like, I highly recommend it. The author is Shonda McCrimmon.
Okay.
Um, and
Good
it was
Irish name.
just, yeah, I think she's Scottish.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, it is a very good, a very good Celtic name. And it it introduced me to the idea of the three cauldrons, which is a keystone in Celtic shamanism. The idea that you have three energy centers in your body. There's the upper one, which connects, it's where divine wisdom enters. There's a central one, which is all about how you connect to other people and the work you're supposed to do on this earth. And then there's a lower one, which is what connects you, keeps you grounded and keeps you centered and rooted into this earth. And I was like, those are the chakras. Those are, that's the same. So realizing that these incredibly similar concepts
Yeah.
emerged before there was the World Wide Web, before people in India were interacting with people on the Celtic Isles, before yeah, and there's very similar concepts in um, if you look at different indigenous cultures around the world, that idea of energy centers that come from the center of your body that serve different purposes and they correlate and they correspond and and then the processes you use. I was reading about shamanic journeying, which is a practice that I learned about through that book. And I was like, this is a lot of what I do in my guided visualizations, or like a kind of a, a guided meditation to help people somatically connect to their goals and kind of get out of their head so much. Like these tools aren't new. And I had been learning about each one of them as if it was a new tool that the life coaches had discovered. And I was like, no, this is ancient wisdom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now you're really speaking my language because that's one of the things that I'm so interested in. And actually, it came up in a past life regression that I did last year of like basically we have to help people remember the ancient wisdom that resides within us. It's like it's baked in our DNA. So like it's baked in your lineage of all of this stuff. And actually, a lot of this work that we do, it's just helping us to remember. And I keep looking over here because I think it's on this bookshelf. I've got to show you a book that you need to read, but I can't
I'm
exactly
so
remember who
excited.
wrote it. Uh, yes. Okay, I found it. Okay, this isn't necessarily a full-on recommendation for everybody watching and listening to this because this book is a bit odd. But it's by Brian Bates and it's called The Way of Weird.
Oh, that looks beautiful.
Anyway, and it's kind of like a journey into the underworld. And he goes and he meets this man, and he's a religious man that has basically been sent from a religious space to go and meet this like weird man in the woods to understand their rituals, um, but in a way to discredit them, and then goes on this whole journey. So it's kind of fiction,
Mhm.
but also non-fiction, and it's very good.
I love that. That I'm writing that down now because I'm gonna
I
have
had a
to.
very, very visceral somatic experience towards the end. Like this book moved. This book did stuff to me on a visceral level. It
Mhm.
awakened things. That's what I mean. It was like a real awakening book where I was like, whoa.
I can't wait. I
But
will
yeah,
let you know after I
yeah,
read it.
let me know.
We can
But
chat
when
about
you
it.
do, but it is interesting because I've done and do like shamanic middle world journeys. And you're right, they're incredibly similar to I've just written this guided visualization, meditation, go off into the woods, meet a guide.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll say, and this is how it really shows up in my life coaching, and this is why I think it's so, this is why I think the pipeline works so well, is because for my clients, it's really a matter of their comfort level of whether I'm like, this is a guided meditation, or whether I'm like, hop in, we're going on a shamanic journey. Let's get your guides on board and let me get my drum. Because that is it's such a similar practice and you get such similar things out of it. So it's almost like, what is your comfort level with the way I talk about this? And I think that's something I'm really happy to have gotten from my background in like psychology and student counseling, is that I'm like, yeah, we can talk about this very cut and dried if that's what you need to move forward with where you are. And then when you're ready, when you all of a sudden pull out the tarot cards, like I've had clients that I will work with and we're doing a regular coaching session, and I will get my little headache that means that like something's about to come through and it's not coming from me. And I'll say like, because consent is sexy, would you be okay if I channeled something for you right now? And if they say no, I'm like, cool, okay, perfect. We'll keep it very cerebral. We'll keep it very vanilla, or we'll be muggles for this one. But if they're open to it and they say, okay, then like out comes the pendulum and out come the cards, and we start to work on another level. And I think that's really, for me, I'm very happy to be able to kind of flow in and out that way of whatever is going to help this particular woman in front of me on her next step of the journey. I don't really care what I call it. And I know my guides don't care what I call it. They're like, this is the work. This is what we've got to do. We were called to be a healer. You're called to be a pathfinder. And in 2026, in America or in the West, that is a life coach. And, 300 years ago, that would have been a shaman or a priestess. It's just where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So, at what point, and I, I'm going to say how, but I don't really mean how. But when did you realize? Maybe that's the question. When did you realize you had the ability to channel? Because it's very you could have just been like, oh, I've got a headache, I need a drink, or some
Oh, yeah.
Tylenol or whatever, right? So what, like, talk me through this because again, I think again useful for people. Also, did I pick the right thing? Because we don't call it Tylenol over here. Is Tylenol painkillers over there?
Oh, we have Tylenol over here too. Yeah, we have
Yeah, no,
Tylenol.
we don't. We don't. We'd call it paracetamol or ibuprofen, but I was trying to like use your language.
That's very fancy. Thank you. I feel very culturally understood. Um, yes, I so I moved recently from where I was living in Florida back to my, my family of origins kind of geographic. So I'm now in the Hudson Valley region of New York. And as soon as I got back, no, that's not true. Before I came back, I went to like a magical retreat and I may have swum in like a sacred spring or something. Got like, so I started having some really interesting experiences where my mind started opening. And then I come back to my ancestral home, if you will, like where I'd grown up, where my family had
Yeah.
had a house for a couple generations. And I started just noticing feelings in my body, like, oh, I feel like there's something here. I feel like I'm maybe being watched almost,
Mm,
or
mm,
just that kind of sensation of like I'd be walking my dog, Lorelai, and her sister Ava, and I would look over and be like, something's in those trees. And then I'd look and it would disappear, but I'd like,
mm.
I'm not gonna whistle or anything. I'm just gonna like gonna stop singing to my headphones and maybe just be a little bit more aware. So that just sort of sense that like I was tuned in a little bit more to possibilities. And at that point, I was like on the cusp of where I was like, I could ignore this. Um, and I really credit the fact that I have read a lot of fantasy and watched a lot of horror movies to just my commitment to being like, I've got to keep an open mind because this could be nothing. But this could be the first 10 minutes of a horror film, and I just need to be aware so that I
Mm.
can react appropriately. I think just in case. Like I always said, I don't believe in ghosts, but I also would not, as soon as I saw a ghost, I would immediately be like, now I believe in ghosts. We're operating on a different level.
Yeah.
And from there, I went about my life more or less. And then I was working I have a fun summer job where I will on weekends work at a Renaissance fair. I don't know if they have those in the UK, but they're big in the US. And so
Give me like 2 sentences about what that is.
it's a bunch of people in the woods somewhere dressed in Renaissance costume, pretending that we are in Renaissance England, speaking in accents and buying a lot of beautiful handmade art and
Oh
eating a
no,
lot
we
of
do. We
food.
actually do have something like that near here. So I live near a town called Evesham, and there was a Battle of Evesham, like William the Conqueror, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So they have fairs there. They have fairs. They even reenact the battle, but they totally have things where people are dressed up and they're like selling cheese from ye olde times and stuff. Yours is probably more
Yeah.
fun. Ours isn't in the woods. But anyway, keep going.
Well, we have more space here. There's so much of America that no one's doing anything with really. And so I'm working at that job. I'm on a break and I sit down and I'm just like, it's a beautiful day. It happens to be the fall equinox, I think,
Oh.
which I clocked later. But I was out and I just got a little bit of a headache. So what I do when I get a headache um, is instead of running and finding a Tylenol, I will sit and for the first thing I'll try is to just like meditate, relax the muscles in my face, and I'll just be like, okay, if the headache's here, I'll try to open my third eye chakra. If it's a little higher, I'll try to open my crown chakra. And when I did that, I felt almost a tapping, like a hey, can I come in? And once
Right.
again, I'm like, okay, is this the first 5 minutes of a horror film? And so I was like, remember what you do with the Fae. You ask them questions. Like, this is all stuff I learned from reading fiction, right? But good fiction, well researched. And it's okay, so like are you're asking to come in? And they're like, yeah, I want to come. This seems fun. I want to experience this day. And I'm like, okay, are you an ancestor? And they were like, well, not quite. And I was like, well, are you benevolent? Like, are you here for my best interest and for the highest good of all? And they were like, yes, 100%. And because fairies can't lie,
And are you
spirits can't
hearing
lie.
this like, are you hearing this? Are you hearing this out loud? Are you hearing it in your mind? Does it feel like it's you talking to you? Like, how do you experience it? Different
I
people.
experience it as a voice in my mind. I'm not
Yeah.
hearing in audio, at least not most of the time.
Mhm.
It's a voice in my mind, but I can tell somehow that it is not my thought.
Yeah.
And at this point, I've had that sensation a few times with clients where I'll say something and I'm like, that was a weird thing for me to say. I don't know if I believe that. Don't listen to that, and it'll come out. And I'm just like, wait a second. So I hear the thought and I was just like, I'm at a Renaissance fair. What's the worst that could happen? And I was like, come on in. I had an amazing day. It was crazy. I didn't feel like I was myself at all. I was much more like brash and like flirtatious. I got so many tips that day. Um, People were like I definitely some people flirting with me, which is normally not what I do at the Renaissance Fair. And it was it was really, really fun. Um, and I started like it just felt like someone else was in there with me. And it was fun until I got kind of like burnt out and I started realizing that I was messing up some of my money stuff. And I was like, that's not me. I don't mess up the money stuff. This is very easy. This is straightforward counting. Okay, like I need to come down. And so that was the point where I started being like, you like should try to get them out so I could come back. And I was able to do that. And then I just felt exhausted. And it almost felt like I had heat exhaustion. I was like overheated. I was having a hard time. I was feeling a little bit dizzy. And I had to get I someone came to check on me, to like relieve me for a break. And I was like, I need to go home. I need someone to come pick me up. I can't drive. I need to go home. And it was a really interesting experience. I kind of like washed it off and I was like, let's not tell anyone about this because this is the kind of thing that like either either they do believe you and then you're like, oh, it's real, or they don't believe you and then that's somehow worse. But I ended up as I was getting a little bit more interested, the shop I bought the book from, The Cauldron and the Drum, they had an intro class later that month to like their Path of the Witch year in a day kind of course about like an intro to magic and witchcraft and paganism. And I went to that and I felt the headache again. I was having a really hard time focusing and concentrating. And the the teacher, the high priestess of their coven, clocked it and she was like, "Are you okay? You look really tired." I was like, I think something is trying to talk to me. So I went downstairs into the shop and I walked over to a set of pendulums, which I had never used. I had seen them used like on TV, like in Charmed. I feel like they use that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We used to watch that when I was a kid. My dad liked it. He liked all the witches.
Yeah, there it's cool. So I grabbed a pendulum and there was a little board and I just sat down. I was like, all right, is someone trying to talk to me? And it goes, yes. And what I will say about pendulums, I think they're so cool because you will not believe they're real at all until you're the one holding the pendulum. Until you're the one holding it and you're like, I am not doing this. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is real. So I'm like, is someone trying to talk to me? And they said yes. And I'm like, does it have to be now? Because I'm kind of here for a class. And they were like, yes, it's now. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to do this. Like, I understand you're trying to talk to me, but I don't know what to do here or how to talk to you. So is there someone here in this space that is supposed to help me? And it says yes. There's an alphabet on the board. So I say, okay, can you tell me like how could you answer this? Like, what's the first letter of their name? And it says N. So upstairs in the classroom of the people I've just gone around and met, there's a woman named Nicole, and she's in the class, but she also does tarot readings at the store. And so after class, I go up to her and I'm like, this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm supposed to talk to you. You're supposed to help me talk to this spirit that's trying to talk to me right now. And she looks over my shoulder, my right shoulder, which is where I get the headache. And she goes, "Oh, it's Bridget. She's trying to light a fire under your ass." And I was like, "What?" So I was like, and I asked the pendulum, or I was like, "Is this the same person who came to me that day that I thought I was going to pass out at work?" And he was like, "Yep." I was like, "Okay, that looking back, I'm like, okay, it makes sense." So I had a reading with Nicole, and it wasn't a reading so much as like an intro class on like how to ground yourself, how to channel, how to open yourself up to this, and how do you work with these powerful energies. For anyone listening who doesn't know, Bridget is someone I was familiar with because I'm Irish by heritage and Catholic by upbringing. So Saint Bridget is she's like a badass uh, Irish saint who was probably a goddess, and instead of being eliminated by the Catholic Church, she was just kind of brought into the fold and kept doing her thing. um, so it's like a powerful energy. Um, like no wonder I was overwhelmed. So learning the tools to kind of deal with that has been really helpful. And since then I've taken like a course to get a little bit more practice. Just be around people who are going to understand my like experience with that. And if you don't interact with it and it's coming to you, you can either accept it, you can ignore it, and eventually it'll probably go away because no one wants to hang out with someone who doesn't really want to hang out with them. Um, or or you can like let it drive you slowly batty. So I decided to pick belief and and support. And I joined that class and I learned so much more about it.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is like so important because it's not that this isn't normal, right? This is a very natural thing that a lot of people experience in very many different ways, right? We experience guidance and channeling and connection with whatever, right? In a whole different variety of ways, which is why I asked how you experience yours. But whilst it's natural, it's not the norm, it's not mainstream, it's not like generally socially accepted of like, general standard dinner party conversation with the muggles. We'll just say that.
Mhm.
We'll just use that term and hopefully people will know what I mean without being offended. And that's why I think it is so important to have those spaces. Like sometimes in my Time Alchemy membership, people will share stuff and then we're all just having a conversation. It's not necessarily that it's all a shared experience. It's not like we're all in the same, like we're not all having the exact same experiences, But then I remember one of the women recently, she was like, she went, but I just love that I can say this. She's like, and no one bats an eye. And I
Hmm.
think that's so, so important because you do doubt yourself. Like, there's a mastermind I'm in, so I'm a student in the mastermind. It's not one of mine. And someone said on Monday, she's like, sometimes I just sort of really, she's like, I really doubt myself. She's like, am I just making this shit up and then like slapping a psychic label on it? Like, but you
Yes.
want the spaces where you can talk through this stuff and like connect back into, well, what is my truth? What is my experience? Am I going
Mhm.
mad? I don't think so.
Yeah, it is. And I had a really wonderful moment. I had a friend come over and visit with me on New Year's Eve, and we were talking about a few things. And she was like, I saw her looking at, I have on my work desk, there's a bag that my husband got me, and it says, Ye old bag of witchy shit. And inside of it, I have a deck of cards, a pendulum, and my pendulum cloth just in case it comes up in a coaching session, right? Like if we're like, oh, something is coming through, or if they find it really helpful if they're struggling to make a decision to be like, would you like to ask your spirit guides directly? Like you can go ahead and ask them. You don't have to listen to them. Remember, if you're channeling, you don't have to listen to your guides. It's your choice. You still have free will. I sometimes will think about them as like a bunch of very well-meaning aunties who like have very strong opinions about what you should do with your life, but they're not always the same thing that you would choose. But she saw that bag and she was like, what is this? Like, can we try it? And I was like, yeah, it's New Year's Eve. It's a great time to ask for guidance about the future. So we closed it. And I think I will, I mean, it's good, I think, that sometimes we doubt ourselves. It's very good
Yeah.
to sometimes stop and question, like, am I doing the right thing? Is this real? Do I still connect with this? And it's important to have a group space, a community space where other people share that kind of alignment. But it's so powerful when your friend who's like a Lutheran is holding your pendulum and it's like going all over the place and she's like, oh my, and then she calls you and she's like, that was so helpful. Like I was like, that for me is like, oh no, this is real. This is, you know,
Amazing. Yeah, that's brilliant. So, what I would love to know, other things I would love to know, and then we'll wrap up because we've both briefly mentioned the raised as Catholic.
yes.
So, how, I guess, do you reconcile the two? How do you reconcile the two? What was the transition like? What was your experience? And then also, it sounds like your husband's really cool and on board. So, I'd just like to hear a little bit more about that as well.
Yes. My
Because
husband is,
sometimes it's hard for our other halves when you've gone from being like
oh no,
one
I'm
way to
sure.
another way.
And I try to be kind of like, he's been with me through the whole thing. And I think it was I didn't believe it at first. I'm like, haha, I'm going to witch class. And then I'm like, no, like we're gonna do some spells. I'm having my friends over to cast a circle in front of the fire. Please have the kid in bed by 7. You know, so he's been absolutely brilliant and I have so much love and gratitude for him being in my life. And yeah, the Catholic thing for me was an easy transition because I opted out of the Catholic Church as soon as I could. My grandmother was very, very Catholic, and God rest her soul. Now that she's passed, we have a much better relationship. I will say, like she came and to like and knocked on my headache door like a month after she passed away. I was like,
Oh.
seriously, like you? And she was like, no, it's okay. It's it's different. But she would weaponize her Catholic faith as a way to control people, right? And so if I didn't attend church for the next week, my photo would be face down all over her house. And I'm
Wow.
like that immediately put a bad taste in my mouth for right for engaging in the church. The only thing I did with the church was their summer plays. We had a priest for a while who would put on really excellent musical theater productions every summer, and I was 100% on board with that. But other than that, I really left as soon as I could. And then I moved to the South where a lot of people were very into religion. And that was a very important part of their life and identity. And through that, I started occasionally accompanying people to church services. My favorite was a non-denominational church service where as you walked in, you could get free coffee or hot chocolate and a piece of cake. And I was like, this is so, as a Catholic girl, you're not allowed to eat before you go to mass. There's no
Nice
food.
community feel. Yeah.
You have to sit there and be hungry, and then they talk about all the things you're doing wrong, and then you can go have food after. So I was like, oh, we can eat at the beginning. This is great. And there were songs, and people were having like a party. So that was fun. But for me, I started to connect more with the archetypes in Christianity. And right, like I love, how can you not like love Jesus as an
Mm.
archetype and as a teacher and as a spiritual guide? It's the same message that
Yeah.
you get from yoga. It's the same message that you get from all of the other spiritual teachings that I like
Mm.
and that have resonated and have shaped me. Um, and so for me, it was kind of easy to be like, oh, when I went to my first like pagan ritual, because the coven I have found and joined will do rituals for all of the holidays. I was
Mm.
like, this is actually kind of like being back in a Catholic church. There's a couple people in robes. They're telling us when to stand, when to sit, what to say. And then at the end, we have a little tea and cake. I'm like, yeah, this is the same thing. It wasn't as hard a transition as I thought once I wrapped my head around. Yeah, there is stuff happening that we don't understand, and we're using different archetypes to talk about it. And even my connection with Bridget, like she's a Catholic saint and she's a Celtic deity and she's a fairy or something. Um, but you know, she shows up in all these different places because the meaning behind it and the energy behind it isn't going anywhere.
And if you were going to summarize the meaning and the energy behind it, I know the word I would use. What word would you use? Is there like a word?
The only word that comes through for me would be love, right? Like
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
versus fear is that's the
Yeah,
big.
that was the word that came to me as well, but it wasn't a test. But I was just like, but I think that's what it is, isn't it? And I think this is some of my challenge with some of more like organized religion things. Is like anything for me that is about separation or division or pitching us against each other or making us wrong or making us feel guilty for existing or making us fearful. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just can't get on board with that.
Oh, I can't trust it.
Yeah, in whatever guise. Okay, so this has been amazing. I think people are going to got so much from this. Your people as well. Obviously, you can share this around. If people are like, I am liking what she is putting down, and I would like to know more, where can they come and find you? How do you work with people? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, so you can find me at megangillman.net. So Megan is Megan. Gilman is Gillman .net. And if you are interested in working with me, obviously, like contact me directly. We'll go ahead and get started. But if you're kind of you hear yourself on that path of like, I'm starting to wake up. I want a little bit more. I'm not ready to like jump in and join a coven yet. but I'm starting to notice that I want a little bit more magic in my life. I want to connect to this part of me. I have a free email list that is called Magical Mondays. And what I do is every Monday, I kind of channel and pull a card and I interpret it. And I do my best to really bridge the gap between, okay, this is the magical guidance that we've received. What are the actions, magical and practical, that I can take this week to really bring that guidance to bear in my life and make sure I'm walking on the right path and in an aligned way? And that is totally free to join. And we'll keep going forever as long as I feel like it.
Yeah, exactly. And is that the same thing that you then share on LinkedIn? Because I see Megan, I mean, I think we're connected in various places, but LinkedIn is where you seem to pop up in my feed. The LinkedIn algorithm has decided we can be friends.
Yes. Yes, I share that on LinkedIn. I share it on LinkedIn and on Instagram. But yeah, you can also just directly go there from my website as well.
Yeah. And the only other thing that I just wanted to say before we ended, and I don't know if it was because I couldn't quite hear it properly, or it might have come through completely clear, but I just want to say it again because I really enjoy it. So your program is Good Girl Deconditioning,
Good girl deprogramming.
Good
Yeah, like
Girl
when you're leaving a
Deprogramming.
cult and you have to get deprogrammed because you believe all this stuff that's not real. And so for yeah, if you identify as like a high achiever or um just like a honestly, if you're like an eldest daughter, this is probably good. If you're a Virgo or a Capricorn,
I'm not a Virgo or a Capricorn, but I'm an eldest daughter. Most of my clients are eldest daughters. Yeah.
yeah, and you were a lawyer, so like you did it. You did all the things you were supposed to do to live the
Yeah.
good, practical, smart. Like you had done it, and then you realize at some point, if you're lucky, that that's actually not making you feel happy in the way that you want. And so to actually find happiness, you have to deprogram yourself. You have to stop believing a lot of things that you've believed are true for most of your life. And you have to
Yeah.
experiment with new thoughts, new ideas. And it's really powerful.
Yeah. No, this will completely resonate with my audience because my work also is where good boys and good girls come to die. So it will definitely land. Right, Megan,
Excellent.
thank you so much for being here. Um, if people want to check out Megan's stuff, we will put links in the show notes so you can go and find her easily down there. And I will see you in a couple of weeks with whatever comes next. Thank you, and thanks again, Megan. It's been great to speak to you.